to talk a little about cliches today. Going to talk a little bit about Mike Tomlin today. But do not ever confuse the two. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Team was back out on Chuck Noll Field yesterday, and the team competed hard, showed plenty of spirit, and did a lot of other things that fall under the category of training camp cliches. This is what Tomlin had to say in opening his daily session with reporters there.
Man, we had another really good day, Steelers versus Steelers. I thought there was really good intensity in our tackle periods, 7 shots and team run. We had overkill today relative to possession down football. We didn't perform well last Friday night on third down on either side of the ball, and so we had an overreaction, a thoughtful overreaction. We drowned ourselves in possession down football today in about 3 of our periods where every down was third down, just to kind of take advantage of this atmosphere in the last week that we have up here in terms of making points about downs are weighted differently. Both possession downs are significant. And so we've, just thoughtful about how we finish up here in terms of some of the things we emphasize in the effort to capture the last that this environment provides us.
If you pay close enough attention to this team, you'll know that that's how Tomlin begins almost all of his sessions in Latrobe, and even then extending into the season when he talks about practices and so forth. He uses terms like thoughtful overreaction. He used another one, overkill of possession down football. My friends, the people who refer to Tomlin as Coach Cliche or suggest that he speaks in cliches could not be more incorrect. Look up the definition of cliche. Cliche means a phrase that's been uttered a zillion times. Putting the cart before the horse, that kind of stuff. Tomlin is the 180-degree opposite of that. He invents his own phrases, and he'll repeat those. But he's not nearly significant enough in society, with all due respect, to suggest that those are cliches, unless they're using them everywhere, and they're not. No one else on planet Earth yesterday used the term thoughtful overreaction. Definitely no one anywhere said that they were working on overkill of possession down football. That's just Tomlin. Those are Tomlinisms. They're anything but cliches. Now, if you want to talk about what can feel cliched or stereotypical, it's a football coach at any level, including the National Football League, emphasizing fire and energy and how hard the players are competing against each other or against an opponent. And that's actually the thing that I want to talk about today, because I think if you're on the outside, or even if you're there in the bleachers at St. Vincent and you're watching what's going on, your main takeaway from a training camp setting is going to be which wide receivers make the fancy and fun catches, because that's actually really entertaining to watch. From a pragmatic standpoint, it's going to be positional stuff. Who's first team, who's second team, who's getting these reps, who's getting those reps. And those things matter to an extent. But I am here to tell you that what matters to the coaches, and what matters particularly to the head coach, is exactly that thing that he opens the session with every day. He wants to see that something a little bit extra. He wants to see Montravius Adams. Hang on, let me rephrase that. My man, Montravius Adams. Because he really is. Taking a running back and flinging him to the ground after the play was over on a 7-shots drill yesterday. And everybody gets mad about it. Everybody pushes and shoves a little bit. But Mon Adams isn't messing around. He and I had a pretty good talk over the weekend. He's not taking a back seat to anybody on that defensive line. He just doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see himself lasting in the league by having that approach. That matters. That matters to the coaches. That matters to this head coach way more than any of the stuff that you and I generally talk about. That's why I'm spending this episode on it today. Dante Jackson really showed a lot of this early on in camp. New guy in the environment, wanted to prove himself, wanted to make sure that he was not only seen but also heard. Well, guess what ends up happening? Corey Trice makes it out with the first team yesterday, and then there's some mitigating circumstances, but you're still out there taking those snaps. You have to make the most of them. And Trice starts doing some things, and Trice starts making it known that he's here after missing what would have been his rookie year to an injury. And that makes the Steelers a tighter, deeper, more fiery team. And no matter who ends up starting at the outside corner spot in Atlanta, everyone involved gets better for both Jackson and Trice coming in with that attitude. That's what Tomlin tries to foster. Way more often than not, he has succeeded in that specific area. That is the reason, I dare say, that year after year, people are saying that the Steelers are going to win 6 games or 7 games or whatever it is. And they go 10-7 without an offensive coordinator and without NFL-level quarterbacking until the final month of the season. Why is that? Why? Because of this. Tomlin's got significant deficiencies. I've believed this for a long time. I've reported it for a long time as a head coach. But this, what I'm talking about today, is not one of them. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Bill. And it comes without any thoughtful overreaction or overkill of possession down football. Bill says, DK, if Troy Fautanu is eventually going to be the right tackle, I would think that Broderick Jones right now should get time at left tackle. Would you agree with that? Bill, I would agree, obviously, that Fautanu is going to be the starting right tackle. I mean, you don't draft somebody in the first round to not use them. Said the same thing about Jones last year, including when he didn't start the season as a member of the offensive line. I'll say the same thing about Fautanu, and by the way, I'll say the same thing about everybody who gets picked in the first round from now until the end of time, with the possible exception, and I mean possible, of quarterback. You draft a first-rounder to play a first-rounder. The question where Fautanu is concerned, and it is really all regarding him at the moment, is how healthy is he? He hurt his knee the other night in the preseason game against the Texans. By every indication, including from Mike Tomlin, including from Arthur Smith yesterday, it's not serious. He's not going to play this weekend against the Bills. But that'll buy him another week of recovery time before, ideally, at least in my eyes, he can get a good number of snaps in Detroit against the Lions, and we'll see where it goes from there. The only thing about this whole scenario that bugs me is that while I appreciate and respect that the Steelers value Jones being able to do both tackle spots, man, you know what? At some point, you just got to give him his job. At some point, you got to do what Omar Khan said earlier in this calendar year about Jones, and that's get him to where you drafted him to play. And I'll tell you, Broderick and I have had a couple of talks in Latrobe on this very specific subject. And while he says all of the right stuff, you're going to have to take my word for it that he says it in such a way that man, he'd really look forward to the day when he can just play one position, focus on it, and kill it, get great at it. So what's more important here than how they line up in Atlanta, as nice as it would be to line up the way you need to, for the long haul, is to make sure that you're best equipped to beat the Falcons, as I was mentioning on a show a couple days ago. These early games have to result in W's because you're going to need them down the road. You're going to need a cushion with the way this schedule strengthens over the second half. So if for whatever reason Fautanu isn't ready, meaning from a football standpoint, or he isn't ready from a physical standpoint, you got to do what you got to do. And that means Jones at right tackle, Dan Moore at left tackle. If Fautanu shows himself to be both prep-wise and health-wise ready, well, it's still taking a gamble, but he's been good. And I really don't think that should get lost here. I know he got beat for the 1 sack, and that didn't look very good. Not live, not on tape. But understand that overall, he's been good. And the people who are the decision makers in this regard feel that he has been good. Right now, everything's just going to kind of depend on that knee and really not much else. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.